you now.
Hey guys, this is Rob back with another build. I have it's TIE Fighter time. I have a studio scale TIE Fighter X-1 TIE Advanced, which is the Vader TIE, and I'm building sort of like an epic display with like I've never built any studio scale TIE Fighters before because I could never get my hands on one. These are variant kits, but the particular one right here I had gotten from Corbanth and a while back, and it sat for a while, and I never got around to it. But I am going to build this particular Vader TIE with two studio scale TIE fighters next to it, and full cockpit, lit, everything, whole 9 yards. So I'm really intent on getting the cockpit looking cool because I really want that to be like the focal point, with the red lighting and Vader sitting in there and all that stuff, and with the lasers firing. So it's going to be more than just the actual kit that I got. I have to add a lot to it. The kit is good. Corbanth doesn't sell it anymore. Just for your information, if you're looking for it, you have to contact donsemora. He actually has the masters now, and he can cast you one. I'll put his contact information in the video comments if you want one. It's missing some parts. They're minor parts. They're small parts that go around that you may not even notice if you don't rivet count or whatever you call it. The thing looks really nice so far. As far as what I had to do to clean it up, it's pretty clean. So what I'm doing right now is test fitting the top and the bottom hull. I'm also working on the wings at the same time, which I'll show you because it's taking me some time to work out the cockpit details and what I want to put inside. There's also no decals with this. There's actually some small decals on this that I have to find. I'll have to source those. But again, I'm going to light it. I'm going to light the engines. I'm going to light the cannons. I'm going to light the interior. So it's going to be a pretty cool, display if I do it right. So what I've done so far, I will show you what I did with the top part of the hull. The bottom part, I just did some minor work. I kind of sanded down this whole bottom here just to get it even. I had also added the detail here and some lights for the engines, and I'll show you how I did those on the top hull, so it's the same thing. I added this bottom plate, and I also added a 8-pin connector for the power and to control the lighting and control the cannons. I started with a 4-pin connector because I only needed 3 wires, but it wasn't sturdy enough to hold this entire model. So what I wanted to do was I drilled out the old one and I put an 8-pin connector, and then I built a little housing. That's all 2-part epoxy in there, and you can see the power coming in. So there's a red, a black, and a blue wire, which is the positive, negative. Blue's positive for the cannons, and then there's 2 LEDs in here for the engines so far. And I also drilled out the parts for the cannons. Now, these cannon parts, they're not stock. They're not from the kit, because what you get is a piece that's not, I don't know if I have it around, it's not hollow, so you have to drill through. It's just a mess. So I got these little caps from my friend Paul. I don't know where he sourced them from. And then I added a little piece of brass tubing to make them stick out with the way they should. And then I drilled the hole accordingly and sealed them, so it looks like all I have to do now is put the LEDs in there and run the wires, and I'm good. And this piece I had a hell of a time getting right. It's still not right. It looks like it's straight, but the right side, or sorry, the port side, is a little higher than the starboard side. I don't know if it's the part or it's the way. I have to figure it out. But it looks okay right now. I'll have to fix it. This piece I had to put on. And right now, this piece looks a lot better after priming than the top. So I'm going to continue to kind of build out this cockpit and add all kinds of details in there. And then all I have to do is attach the wings once I have the interior all done. So the interior is going to be my main focus, and then some external details that I have to add here and there. So stay tuned. I will keep making parts to this, and I will, I'll show you the progress, and then I'll move on to the standard TIE fighters after I'm done with the Vader TIE. He's my first priority, so I'm going to get this one done first, then I'll do the other ones. And I'll show you actually more of how I did the top section wiring and the cannon wiring too, because that's kind of interesting. I don't know if you're curious about playing with LEDs and doing your own wiring and stuff like that, so I kind of tried to make it as simple as possible. So I'll include that in this video as well, and I'll continue to make videos as I progress and show you the progress that has been done. Hopefully you can see this. What I'm doing now is I'm working on, and I'll show you a close-up. This is a lighting layout for the cannons on the front of the Vader TIE. So when you see him fire, it's like rapid fire, right? It's real fast. So there's a couple of ways I could have done this. I took the easy way out, and I ordered some ultra fast flashing LEDs, 3mm in green, from my usual source, which is All Post, and I wanted to make sure that sometimes when you buy the flashing LEDs, you can buy fast or you can buy slow. The slow ones, if you have them in series, meaning if you have, they're hard to get synchronized. So I wanted to get the two lights, or the laser beams in the front. They had to fire simultaneously, or it just wouldn't look right. So what I did was I wired them. I guess you would call it in series. So let me show you what they look like, and then I'll show you the wiring diagram of how I did it. So this is the end result, and you can see they're not exactly synced, but that's because of the camera. If I'm looking at this right now, they're blinking exactly in unison. So it's just an issue with the frame rate of the camera, I believe, because they're flashing pretty fast. So that's what it looks like. I'm going to put those in the front of the ship, where the cannons are, and then I'm working on the interior lighting, which I really want to get right. I really love the look of the TIE Fighter interior, so I'm working on that, and I'll show you that next. But I want to get this out of the way. So just to give you a close-up of this, let me show you the diagram first, and then I'll show you how I'm going to clean this up. Okay, I'm going to try and talk through this without moving the camera as much as I can. So it's actually pretty simple. You have a power source coming in, which is either battery or a DC. It's a DC power source. It's either a battery or if it's a wall plug. I use anywhere between 9 and 12 volts most of the time. Sometimes I'll go lower, it depends on the model. But for this particular model, I'll probably use 12 volts. So you have a positive and you have a negative coming in from the power source. Okay, so the positive I have going to the first LED. So there's a longer and a shorter post. The longer post is the positive. Okay, so I hooked up a between the positive lead and the LED, I hooked up a 470 ohm resistor, which is pretty standard for me. I use those. I like the way they dim the light a little bit, but not too much. So there's one resistor between that hooks up to the LED positive pole. Okay. Then after the resistor, I ran a wire to the positive on the second LED. So it's already getting the resistance from this resistor right here. So you don't have to worry about putting another resistor on here, or else it's going to dim the light even more and they won't match. So that's the positive side. The negative side is just going from the negative of the power source to the shorter pole on the LED, and then I ran a wire from that over to the shorter pole on the second LED. So I'm pretty sure that's why I'm getting a sequenced flash, because they're both getting the same power, and they're both going off of the same wires. So if I wire these separately with a resistor on each, I think they might not match up, but this seemed to work. So that's my layout for the cannons. The rest of the lighting is very straightforward. It's just hooking up. I'll probably use some pre-wired LEDs for the engines, and for the interior lighting I'll probably use some SMDs, and I'll show you those when the time comes. But that's it for the front cannons. One thing I will do is solder. Now, I know soldering is scary to some people. They're not very good at it, or you just need to practice. So I haven't soldered anything yet. I just kind of folded over the LED wires and wrap the wires around and then clamp them so they're held, but I have to solder all this stuff. So it's not very complicated. One thing I will have to do is, because these Canon LEDs are going to be going into a tight space, you don't want these two you don't want these leads touching, right? Or the LED's not going to work. So I have to insulate one of them with something so it doesn't touch the other one when I squeeze it into the Canon housing. I have some small wire wrap that I'll use to go around that, and to make sure that it doesn't touch. The positive and negative don't touch, or else it's just not gonna work. So I'll solder these, and then what I like to do is, after I solder them, I use a liquid tape to go over. If I can't really fit, I don't like using electrical tape too much, because it's thick, it's big, it'll prevent you from getting the LED into a small spot, and it can slide off easily. So I'll put some liquid tape on there just to kind of as double insurance on top of the solder, just to hold everything together. Okay, so this is my soldering station right here. Highly recommend these wire trimmers. These are like wire strippers. These are like the best. I have 2 sets of these. These are phenomenal. I got these on Amazon. I think there's a set for the smaller gauge and the larger gauge, so you get 2 of them. So I have my setup all ready to go. This is what I showed before. Don't forget, if you're going to use the shrink tubing, make sure you disconnect your wire before you put it on. If you solder this first, then you're not going to be able to do it. So I replaced this blue wire. I took it off, I replaced it, and I put it on my shrink tubing that's going to cover the positive pole of this LED. Soldering stations, I have a Weller It is by far the best one I've ever had. It lasted me for years. If you want a portable one, because I can't lug that thing around, if I have to solder on a model that's, you know, on my bench and I can't move the station, I have a portable one. This one is about $15, $20 on online or in the hardware store. Uses 4 AA batteries. This gets really hot really fast. I love this thing. You have to replace the batteries pretty often, but it is the best one that, as far as portable. I don't like the butane ones. I've tried those. They all failed me. So I like to solder at a pretty high temperature. I'm sure everybody's got their opinion as far as what's the best temperature to solder. I just like doing it quick and fast, getting a really good solder joint. And like I said, it does take some practice. So I'm going to let this thing, it heats up real fast. While we're waiting, Baby Yoda can entertain us. I think his batteries are almost dead. Come on, man. Yeah, there he is. I'm sure he'll comment on my soldering technique. So I'll zoom in here. So I only have 5 joints to solder. So there's 2 on this LED, there's 2 here, and there's 1 here. So I'm going to clean this tip off, this little cleaning station that I have, and we're all ready to go. I use thin solder. It's good for electronics. It's really good for this application. This is I don't even know the label came off, but it's very thin solder. So I'm going to make this short and sweet. I'm going to heat up this wire. I'm at like 580 degrees on my soldering station, which means it's going to heat up this wire real fast. And since I'm using thin gauge wire, I got to be careful. You don't want to hold it on there too long. Okay, so that's it. Okay, so all my joints are soldered right now, and what I'm going to try and do now is move this heat shrink tubing over the positive pole that totally covers all of the metal, so I don't have to worry about anything touching. And I'm going to do the same thing . Okay, so that's good. So now I have to heat shrink it. So I'm going to use a heat gun. So I'm going real carefully. I don't want to burn through the wire. Just making sure that that heats enough so it grips. Looks like it's good there. This is going to get real hot real fast. So that's good. Okay, so all of our heat shrink tubing is on. Now what I'm going to do is just make sure that this connection is not only soldered, but that it's reinforced. Now I could put tape on that, like I said, I could just put electrical tape on that, but yeah. not a good idea because I'm trying to squeeze this into a small spot. So I'm going to try and put some liquid tape on that. And this stuff you can get in the US anyway at the hardware store. They make, like, this is black. You can get it in green and red, and so it's a thick, very thick liquid that comes with a brush that's very big, which is not good for this application. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a I want to set this aside. And I'm going to take a paintbrush that I don't care about, that I can just throw away. I used to keep extra paintbrushes around. Alright. I'm going to add the stuff. I'm going to cover this. Stuff dries pretty fast. You can actually hit it with a blow dryer if you want, if you're in a hurry. But it will just add another layer of security to adhering the wire to the resistor. Try not to get it on your hands because it's kind of a mess. Alright, that's probably good enough. So I'm just covering the resistor. I'm covering, not the resistor, sorry, I'm covering the wire where it joins the LED. Again, just as an added layer of protection. I could have used tape, but this stuff I think is a lot easier. I don't need to worry about the heat shrink tubing stuff. That's already secured. So that's it. Everything's secured, everything's soldered. I'll wait till the stuff dries, and then I'll retest to make sure that my LEDs still work. Alright, well, this is the top hole I'm working on, and all I did to this so far, well, actually I did a couple of things. I cut out the top. The top was, I believe, was solid. I cut it out with a Dremel, first a drill press, because it was like a 1/2 inch of resin. I drill pressed around, and then I used the Dremel, and then I used a drum sander to kind of go around and clean this up. It doesn't have to be perfect because there's going to be a top piece that's going to go around there. I added the detail on the inside. There's some weird looking pipes that I got from I think I got those from Thingiverse, and I printed those in resin, kind of scaled them to size so they're kind of sticking out. And I also, as you notice on the bottom of this, you can see some there's a lot of sanding marks, because I actually took this whole piece and I kind of went over it with a belt sander, kind of just went over it to clear up any uneven sections, because this was cast in a mold that was like flat, so the top was, there was a, you know, uneven sections and everything else. So I just sanded this off so it's nice and clean, and I still have a little bit of cleanup work to do on some of these sections. I had to clean out these sections here a little bit, and I had added, so there's some parts that come with the model that you have to add for the lighting for the engines. So these pieces here, this one and this one, I had to put on, and you can see there's a little bit of a gap in there. I'll fill that in. This one looks pretty clean, but I'll fill it in too. and you have to line them up. And I had to drill through these pieces. I did that actually prior to putting them on, and then I went through later and went through with another bit and went through and drilled holes for the LEDs to come through. And I'm going to light block the interior of this. I don't care how thick this resin is. I'm just going to light block it just to, make sure everything's okay, and I can put all the lights I want in the cockpit. Nothing's going to show through. This is very thick resin, but I'm going to use just flat black spray paint. Just kind of hit that with light blocking. I don't know if you can see there's little holes here that I had drilled for the LEDs, and I'm using pre-wired 3mm red LEDs. Now these you can buy anywhere. What I like to do is test these before I put them in, because you never know. So if these are pre-wired, sometimes there's a little piece at the end there you can see, like, that will prevent you from pulling the insulation off. So I just cut that off first, and then I'm going to separate these wires. I'm going to take off about 3/4 of an inch. I'm probably not going to need all this wire, so I'll probably trim it later, but I want to test these out first. What I use for the testing is I have a bench power supply. I never put an LED in a model without testing it first, and a lot of times I'll test them for a couple of days if it's going into an area that I'm going to seal up. So all I'm going to do is just kind of quickly put these together, positive to positive, negative to negative. And I have my bench power supply set at about 11.5 volts DC. It looks like these are both working. I don't know about this one. Yeah, this one's flaky. So if it's not consistently lighting, I'll just throw it away and use another one. There's something going on with this one. We can see, depending on how I bend it. It's a good thing I tested this. So, good example. I will replace this one. That one goes in the garbage, and I'll hook up another one. So now I got two consistently lighting 3mm LEDs. This one's, they look pretty good to me. So I'm going to separate these guys, and I'm going to put these in I may have to force this in a little bit depending on how big this hole is that I made. I'm hoping I don't have to re-drill this. And it's coming through the hole there. You can see it. Sorry, it's hard for me to angle this towards the camera because I'm having a hard time seeing the camera screen. Alright, so I'll have another one here put in, and doesn't matter if, I didn't paint this yet, so I'm just going to mask these LEDs off. Now, after you mess around with them and push them in here, odds are you may have messed up something with the connection, so I'm going to test them again before I do anything about securing them. So there's two LEDs mounted. I'm going to test them again. Don't be afraid to mess around with this LED stuff. It's low voltage. You may blow a few LEDs, kind of, you know, messing around, but that's the only way you can figure it all out. So let's give this a shot. Yes, it works. So I'm getting both the engines on the top hull. Looking pretty good. So what I'll do is I will seal these in place. Actually, I'm going to do this right now because let's see here. This stuff's pretty good. This stuff, it's not as good as canopy glue, but it's Tester's clear. It's strong paint or glue. Sorry, it's kind of a pain in the neck to keep it flowing in this container, and they conveniently make it so you can't screw this off and refill it with canopy glue or something. So they want you to buy another one. So I'm just going to liberally go over this with this Tester's clear stuff, and this is going to hold that LED in there. It's going to dry clear, so you don't have to worry about anything. And I'm going to take some. Damn, where am I? Ah. I'm going to take just a Q-tip, and it takes paint too, so you just can't sand it off, so you just have to be careful. I'm just going to clean this up with a Q-tip. And surprisingly, this stuff is strong. This is going to hold these LEDs in there, not that they need to be held on because they're in there pretty tight. And I'll also probably put a dab of CA glue on the inside just to hold these. And I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to cram everything into this cockpit. But that's my top engine lighting. There's some pitting in here that's just, you know, par for the course with resin kits. There's like some small holes. So I'm going to probably hit this with some primer that's a filler. It's not going to eat into any detail, but it will clean up these little holes that you see. They're little, very, very small holes, but they are showing, so I don't want to see those in the end product. So it's looking pretty good. Funny story about this. This is the second hole top that I had. The first one, I had it sitting on top of the bottom hole on a bit temporary base. And it slid off my workbench when I wasn't watching. I guess I just hit something, and the whole piece slid off, hit the ground, and the whole front piece broke off. It landed like boom. It was done. So I actually contacted donsemora, who has the kit masters now for the Corbanth X-wing, or sorry, X-1 advanced tie, and he was nice enough to send me a whole new top piece for a minimal cost, and he turned it around real quick. So I have a whole new piece. Thank you, Don. You're the man. You really helped me out. There was no way I could have fixed it apart. It was completely smashed. Accidents happen. Hazards of the job. You just got to be a little more. Have to be a little more careful. But you know, that's probably the first time that ever happened to me. But stuff happens. All right, we'll go with the top for now. I'll come back later with the bottom.
Stay in attack formation.